Hello, class, and welcome to another lesson on world civilizations for high school world history. Today we're going to be talking about, as you can see, history's richest man. So as we get started, I have a question. Who do you think it is? Who is the world's richest man? Please give yourself a moment to guess for yourselves. There are so many wealthy people in history. So who could it be? My guess is you were thinking of any number of these people. We have Jeff Bezos here on the far left, CEO of Amazon. We have two of the biggest tech giants, Steve Jobs and Bill Gates, also incredibly wealthy. Could it have been JP Morgan, one of the most powerful, if not the most powerful, financiers in American history? Perhaps Donald Trump, the real estate mogul and current US president? Or maybe King Louis XVI, whose wealth was one of the major causes of the French Revolution. What about Genghis Khan, who led a massive campaign to build the single greatest land empire in world history? Could it have been a modern film director, such as Steven Spielberg or George Lucas? Or even Julius Caesar, one of Rome's wealthiest and most successful military tacticians? You might be surprised to learn that it is none of these people, and that is something that they all have in common, and that in fact the title belongs to none other than Mansa Musa. I wouldn't be surprised if none of you have heard who this was before. I remember I received only one lesson in all of my schooling about Mansa Musa, and I will make sure that you will never forget it. Let's dive in. Today's objectives are to learn about Mansa Musa, to learn about his sources of wealth, how he became so wealthy, and to understand the historical impact that he made. On the right here, you can see a picture of the Mali Empire at the time that Mansa Musa died in 1337 CE. Note the different gold fields in the region, as well as the major trade routes. But we'll get to that later. Let's first talk about the man. Musa the First of Mali. Musa is a name similar to Moses, means the same thing. And he ruled the empire from 1312 to 1337. He was born in the year 1280. So if you do the math, you can see he lived a rather brief life and died at about 56, 57 years old of natural causes. He inherited quite a bit of wealth already when he took the throne, and you can see a little bit of that in what he's wearing right now. The name Mansa is a ruler similar to Sultan, a sort of Islamic king, a leader, kind of a religious king. Now let's talk about how he got so wealthy in the first place. The fact is, Mali was already quite wealthy before Mansa Musa took the throne, and it was mainly due to the resources that they had available to them. Trade caravans had already been established across the Sahara Desert centuries before, and was already bringing wealth to the regions of Ghana and Mali. But the ones that the Mali Empire was most famous for producing was gold, ivory, and salt, as you can see. Now, why would salt have been as valuable as either of these two things? Well, that might be answered best in our next slide. Europe during the 1300s was not a happy place. It was full of war and disease. It was a very messy time. Think about it. The whole of Eastern Europe had been already ravaged by the Mongol invasion. The 100 Years' War was raging between England and France, and the Black Plague killed about a third of the European population. But at the time, salt, as I was saying, was not easily accessible. It helped people working in the desert because it helped them. It's full of sodium, which helps you sweat, which is helpful for when you're out in the hot climate. Helps cool you off. And it was also non-existent in virtually any of the foods that any of these people on the picture on the right ate. So when you are a king, what do you do with all your wealth? And what do you do in the brief time that you live? Well, to answer that, I'm going to refer you to this video. But to start, Mansa Musa began his reign by annexing Timbuktu and Gao, which were already independent. He incorporated them to the empire. And now let's learn about, well, let's learn a little more, shall we?
The world first witnessed the extent of Mansa Musa's wealth in 1324, when he took his pilgrimage to Mecca. Not one to travel on a budget, he brought a caravan stretching as far as the eye could see. Accounts of this journey are mostly based on an oral testimony and differing written records, so it's difficult to determine the exact details. But what most agree on is the extravagant scale of the excursion. Chroniclers describe an entourage of tens of thousands of soldiers, civilians, and slaves, 500 heralds, bearing gold staffs and dressed in fine silks, and many camels and horses bearing an abundance of gold bars. Stopping in cities such as Cairo, Mansa Musa is said to have spent massive quantities of gold, giving to the poor, buying souvenirs, and even having mosques built along the way. In fact, his spending may have destabilized the regional economy, causing mass inflation. This journey reportedly took over a year, and by the time Mansa Musa returned, tales of his amazing wealth had spread to the ports of the Mediterranean. Mali and its king were elevated to near legendary status, cemented by their inclusion on the 1375 Catalan Atlas. One of the most important world maps of medieval Europe, it depicted the king holding a scepter and a gleaming gold nugget. Mansa Musa had literally put his empire and himself on the map. But material riches weren't the king's only concern. As a devout Muslim, he took a particular interest in Timbuktu, already a center of religion and learning prior to its annexation. Upon returning from his pilgrimage, he had the great Djinguereber Mosque built there with the help of an Andalusian architect. He also established a major university, further elevating the city's reputation and attracting scholars and students from all over the Islamic world. Under Mansa Musa, the empire became urbanized, with schools and mosques in hundreds of densely populated towns. The king's rich legacy persisted for generations, and to this day, there are mausoleums, libraries, and mosques that stand as a testament to this golden age of Mali's history.
So I hope you can see now that he did quite a bit in his short time as king. Not only was he the wealthiest, and did he make Mali the richest kingdom in Africa, he put it on the map, and he granted it legendary status all across the known world. Here is the larger picture of the Great Catalan Atlas, 1375. You can see in the bottom left corner here, you can see Mansa Musa and the Mali Empire. On the left there is the mosque that was discussed in the video. And on the right, you can see a man reading a manuscript dating back to the Mali Empire. And these manuscripts are still being read today. So before we end here, I'd like you to consider a few questions. How come not many people have heard about Mansa Musa? And why would that be the case? Why has nobody else in history since been so wealthy? And after you're long gone, what kind of legacy do you think that you would like to have? How would you like people to remember you? If you would like to read more or watch the entire video, you can click on either of these two links. So thank you for coming to my lesson today, and there will be a quiz that I will share with you on Google Classrooms, and I expect that to be done before class tomorrow. It won't take very long. Thank you very much again.